after I became a millionaire. The first thing I learned was that money doesn't stop strangers from knowing your secrets. It happened on a Tuesday morning in Boston, outside the glass doors of my architectural firm on Newbury Street. The air was cold enough to sting, sharp with that particular autumn bite that makes your breath visible and your fingers ache inside leather gloves. I was holding a ceramic cup of Ethiopian coffee, the kind that costs $12 and tastes like burnt caramel and regret, when a woman stepped directly into my path. She wasn't homeless. She wasn't selling anything. She was simply there, as if she'd been waiting, her wool coat too clean, her posture too deliberate. Our eyes met for less than a second before she pressed a folded piece of cream-colored stationery into my palm. "For you, Mrs. Whitmore," she said. Then she was gone, dissolving into the stream of morning commuters like steam off the Charles River. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Like this video so this story reaches more hearts, and subscribe for the next journeys. I stood there on the sidewalk, the note burning in my hand even through my glove. Mrs. Whitmore. No one had called me that in 8 years. Not since the day I signed the divorce papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like old books and broken promises. Not since I reclaimed my maiden name, Charlotte Brennan, and built an empire on it. My firm, my reputation, my carefully constructed life where the past was sealed behind frosted glass and non-disclosure agreements. The note was thick, expensive paper, the kind you use for wedding invitations or condolence letters. I didn't open it there on the street. Instead, I walked into my building, past the marble reception desk where Simone smiled her perfect receptionist smile, past the junior architects hunched over their screens, into my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the public garden. Only then did I unfold it. The handwriting was unfamiliar, elegant, slightly slanted, feminine. But the words were surgical in their precision. "Mrs. Whitmore, you've done well for yourself, but we both know the foundation you built your fortune on wasn't entirely yours. He's been watching. And now, so am I." My coffee went cold in my hand. The thing about becoming a millionaire is that you believe you've earned the right to control your narrative. You think wealth is a fortress, that success is armor, that enough zeros in your bank account can rewrite history. I'd spent 8 years believing exactly that. I'd won awards, been featured in Architectural Digest, hired 60 employees, designed buildings that would outlive me by centuries. But that note, those 23 words on cream-colored paper, reminded me of something I'd buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself it never existed. Almost. I turned to the window, watching the swan boats glide across the pond below, their elegant white curves reflected in water that looked like hammered silver. Tourists laughed. Couples held hands. The world continued its oblivious rotation, while my perfectly ordered life began to crack along fault lines I thought I'd sealed years ago. The truth was, I did know what the note meant. I knew exactly what foundation it referred to, and the pronoun, he, landed in my chest like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples outward that would eventually touch everything. But I wasn't ready to face it yet. Not the memory, not the implications, not the question of who was watching, and why now after all this time, after I'd finally become someone who mattered. So I did what I always did when the past tried to surface. I opened my laptop, pulled up the renderings for the new museum project, and drowned myself in angles and elevations and the clean mathematical certainty of load-bearing walls. Some secrets, I told myself, could stay buried forever. I was wrong. The note stayed in my desk drawer for 3 days, folded back into its original creases, hidden beneath a stack of contractor proposals and zoning permits. I told myself I'd thrown it away. I told myself it didn't matter. But I knew exactly where it was. Top right drawer, under the blue folder, waiting. My mornings continued with their usual precision. I woke at 5:30 in my brownstone on Beacon Hill, the kind of historic brick building that whispers old money, even though mine was decidedly new. The floors were original wide plank oak, restored to a honey-colored gleam. The kitchen was all Carrara marble and brushed nickel, designed by my own hand to feel both luxurious and lived in. I'd gut-renovated the entire place myself 3 years ago. Every decision deliberate. Every corner a testament to the fact that Charlotte Brennan knew exactly what she was doing. I made my coffee in a French press, read the Times on my tablet. Dressed in the uniform I'd perfected, tailored blazers in charcoal or navy, silk blouses in cream, trousers that cost more than my first car. My jewelry was minimal. Small diamond studs, a vintage Cartier watch that had belonged to my grandmother, the only person who knew me before. The drive to the office took 12 minutes through streets lined with gas lamps and federal-style architecture. Boston in October was a study in burnt orange and deep crimson, the city dressed in its finest colors like a woman preparing for something important. I usually loved this season, the sharpness of it, the way summer's softness gave way to something with edges. But now every stranger on the sidewalk felt like a potential messenger. Every delivery person, every client, every face in the coffee shop line. Who had she been? The woman with the note. And more importantly, who was he? At the office, I moved through my days with practiced efficiency. Morning meetings with the design team, afternoon site visits to the harbor project, a residential tower I'd spent 2 years fighting for, every permit a small war won. Evening calls with investors who spoke in millions like other people spoke in hundreds. My assistant, Marcus, kept my calendar color-coded and airtight. My life had the appearance of perfect control. But control is just another word for performance. On Thursday afternoon, I found the second note. It was waiting on my car windshield when I left a lunch meeting in the Seaport District. Same cream-colored paper, same elegant handwriting. This time, the message was shorter. The museum gala is Saturday. He'll be there. Will you finally tell the truth, or should I? My hands shook as I unlocked the car. The leather steering wheel felt cold under my palms. The museum gala, the opening of the contemporary art wing I'd designed, the project that had taken 3 years and secured my reputation as one of the top architects in New England. It was supposed to be my triumph. Black tie, press coverage, a bronze plaque with my name, and apparently a reckoning. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, staring at the note, trying to logic my way through the panic. Who knew I'd be at that lunch meeting? Who knew about the gala? The answer, of course, was anyone with an internet connection. My calendar was semi-public. The gala had been announced in the Globe. But the knowledge felt more intimate than that. Personal. He'll be there. I thought of only one person. The same person I'd been trying not to think about since Tuesday morning. The person whose name I hadn't spoken aloud in 8 years, as if silence could erase him from existence. Michael Whitmore, my ex-husband. The man I'd loved with the kind of desperate, consuming intensity that feels like drowning and flying at the same time. The man I'd left behind when I filed for divorce, walked away from our apartment in Cambridge, and started over with nothing but a portfolio and a fury that felt like gasoline in my veins. The man whose architectural designs, the early ones, the brilliant ones, the concepts that should have made him famous, were locked in a storage unit in Somerville. Locked, but not destroyed. I drove back to the office with the note on the passenger seat, its presence loud as a scream in the silence of the car. That evening, I stayed late. The building emptied around 7, the junior architects filtering out in groups, laughing about drinks in the North End. Marcus stopped by my office before leaving. "You okay?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "You've been quiet today." "Just thinking about Saturday," I said, which wasn't a lie. "It's going to be incredible," he said. "Your night, Charlotte. Enjoy it." After he left, I pulled the first note from my drawer and placed it beside the second. 2 pieces of paper, 2 warnings, 2 days until I had to face whatever this was. The foundation you built your fortune on wasn't entirely yours. I looked around my office, at the framed magazine covers, the architecture awards lined on floating shelves, the scale models of buildings I'd brought into existence through sheer will and talent. My empire, my identity. Except for the part I never talked about. The part that lived in that storage unit. The part that had Michael's name on it too. Back when we were still we. Back when his genius and my execution felt like partnership instead of theft. It wasn't theft, I whispered to the empty office. We were married. It was ours. But even as I said it, I knew how fragile that justification was. How easily it could shatter under scrutiny. The swan boats had stopped running by the time I looked out the window again. The pond was dark, reflecting nothing but the distant glow of streetlights. Saturday was 2 days away. I didn't sleep Thursday night, or Friday night. I lay in my king-sized bed with its Belgian linen sheets and watched shadows move across the ceiling, my mind cycling through the same questions on an endless loop. What would he say? What would she reveal? And the question underneath all the others, the one that made my chest tight. Did I steal from him, or did I just survive? Friday morning, I canceled my site visits and spent 4 hours at my dining table with my laptop and a legal pad, reconstructing the timeline I'd spent 8 years trying to forget. Michael and I met at MIT. I was getting my master's in architecture. He was finishing his PhD in structural engineering, the kind of brilliant, tortured academic who saw buildings as poetry written in steel and glass. We fell in love the way creative people do, obsessively, desperately, with the kind of intensity that either builds empires or burns them down. We got married 6 months after we met. Too fast, everyone said. But when you're 26 and someone looks at your sketches the way other people look at sunsets, you don't wait. For 3 years, we worked side by side. Our apartment in Cambridge became a studio. Drafting tables pushed together, rolls of trace paper everywhere, late nights fueled by Thai takeout and architectural theory. He'd engineer the impossible. I'd make it beautiful. We entered competitions together. Won some, lost most. The concepts were extraordinary. A residential tower that breathed, literally, with a facade that opened and closed based on air quality. A museum built into a quarry, rooms carved from stone. A library that collected rainwater and used it to create moving walls of water between sections. Visionary, unmarketable, too expensive, too strange. We were brilliant together and completely broke. Then I got pregnant. I wrote those words on the legal pad and stared at them until they blurred. Even now, even after everything, that fact still had the power to stop my breath. I got pregnant, and suddenly, the abstract beauty of impossible buildings felt like a luxury we couldn't afford. Michael didn't see it that way. He wanted to keep pushing, keep creating, keep believing that eventually the world would catch up to our vision. But I was the one whose body was changing. I was the one who woke up at 3 a.m. calculating how we'd pay for diapers and daycare on adjunct professor salary and competition prize money that never materialized. So I made a decision. I took our portfolio, the one we'd built together, the designs we'd dreamed up in that cluttered Cambridge apartment, and I showed it to Harrison Locke, the principal at the most prestigious architecture firm in Boston. I told him I wanted a job, a real job. Not as a designer with impossible visions, but as someone who could execute practical, profitable projects. He hired me on the spot, not because of the impossible buildings, because of me. Because I walked into his office 8 weeks pregnant with a steel spine and a portfolio that showed I understood both vision and reality. Michael was furious. "You're selling out," he said that night, standing in our kitchen with his arms crossed. "Those designs are ours, our vision. Our vision doesn't pay rent, I told him. So we're just giving up? Just becoming corporate? I'm becoming a mother. The silence after that was the beginning of the end. I worked at Harrison's firm for 2 years, learning everything about the business of architecture, how to court clients, how to navigate zoning boards, how to turn beautiful ideas into profitable realities. And yes, I used concepts from our shared portfolio, modified them, made them buildable, sold them to clients as my own, because by then, they felt like mine. Michael had checked out of our marriage the day I took that job. He spent his time at MIT, teaching and researching and pretending we didn't exist. When our daughter was born, I stopped writing, put down the pen. Some things were still too painful to put into words. By the time I filed for divorce, I'd built enough of a reputation to go out on my own. I was 29, newly single, and hungry in a way that felt like salvation. I took 3 of our best concepts, the ones that could actually be built, and I launched Brennan Architecture with them. The Harbor Residential Tower, the Contemporary Art Museum wing, the Cultural Center in Cambridge. All of them had started as conversations in our apartment. All of them had Michael's structural brilliance embedded in their bones. But I was the one who made them real. I was the one who fought for permits and wooed investors and spent 70-hour weeks turning dreams into steel and glass. Did that make them mine? I wanted to believe it did. I'd built an entire identity on believing it did. But Friday afternoon, sitting at my dining table with 8 years of justification spread out before me, I finally let myself ask the question I'd been avoiding. What if I was wrong? My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Final walkthrough at the museum at 4. You coming? I looked at the legal pad covered in my handwriting. Dates, projects, rationalizations. Then I looked at the 2 cream-colored notes I'd brought home from the office, now sitting on my kitchen counter like accusatory ghosts. He'll be there. Will you finally tell the truth? I texted back. On my way. The museum was in the Fenway, a modern glass and limestone addition to a historic building. My design, my triumph. As I walked through the galleries Friday afternoon, checking sightlines and lighting, I tried to see it the way Michael would see it. The cantilever in the main gallery. That was his calculation, his elegant solution to a seemingly impossible structural problem. We'd worked it out together on our living room floor, using chopsticks and string to model the forces. The way natural light filtered through the clear story windows, that was my aesthetic, but the engineering that made it possible was his. We'd sketched the original concept the week before I told him I was pregnant. I remembered because he'd kissed my stomach and said, "Our child's first museum." I stood in the center of the empty gallery, my heels echoing on the polished concrete floor, and felt the weight of what I'd done settle over me like a physical thing. Tomorrow night, this space would be filled with donors and board members and press. They'd toast me, thank me, celebrate my vision. And somewhere in that crowd would be Michael, watching, knowing, and someone else. The woman with the notes, the watcher. I pulled out my phone and did something I hadn't done in 8 years. I searched for Michael Whitmore online. He was still at MIT, still teaching, no longer publishing much. His faculty photo showed a man who looked older than 37, tired around the eyes, his dark hair starting to gray at the temples. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Even in a JPEG on a university website, I could see it. The same brilliance, the same intensity, the same hurt. "I'm sorry," I whispered to his photograph, alone in the museum gallery I'd built on the foundation of our broken dreams. But sorry wasn't enough. It had never been enough. Tomorrow, I'd have to face him. Face the truth. Face the possibility that everything I'd built was stolen. Or worse, that it wasn't stolen, just abandoned by the person who'd once shared it with me. I didn't know which version would hurt more. Saturday arrived with cruel perfection, clear skies, golden October light that made Boston look like it had been dipped in honey, the kind of day that belongs in magazines, in memory, in the carefully curated version of life where everything goes according to plan. I spent the morning at the salon on Newbury Street, letting them do things to my hair that cost more than my first month's rent in Cambridge. The stylist chattered about the weather, the gala, how exciting it must be. I smiled and nodded and watched myself in the mirror, trying to recognize the woman looking back. She was polished, successful, wearing a mask so perfect even she believed it most days. The dress I'd chosen was midnight blue silk, custom-made, with a neckline that suggested elegance without apology. I put on my grandmother's diamond earrings, the only inheritance I had besides her cheekbones and her capacity for survival. Looking at myself in the full-length mirror in my bedroom, I looked like exactly what I'd worked so hard to become. Someone who belonged at her own triumph. Someone who deserved to be there. The gala started at 7. I arrived at 6:30 before most of the guests, while the caterers were still setting up champagne flutes in perfect rows, and the string quartet was tuning in the corner. The museum glowed from within. My design exactly as I'd envisioned it, modern and warm, glass and light, a space that felt like possibility itself. Marcus met me in the main gallery, impeccable in his tuxedo. "You look beautiful," he said, "and nervous. Don't be nervous. This is your night." "I know," I said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter even though my hands were already shaking. The guests began arriving at 7. A steady stream of Boston's cultural elite, museum board members, donors, city officials, architecture critics whose reviews could make or break careers. I moved through the crowd with practiced grace, accepting congratulations, making small talk, pretending my eyes weren't scanning every face for the two I was dreading. At 7:45, I saw her first. The woman from Tuesday morning. The one who'd handed me the note. She was standing near the sculpture gallery, wearing a black cocktail dress and holding a glass of white wine, watching me with the same deliberate intensity I remembered. Our eyes met across the room. She smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. My heart hammered against my ribs. I started moving toward her, weaving through clusters of conversation. But Harrison Locke intercepted me halfway. "Charlotte?" His hand on my elbow was firm, proprietary. "The mayor wants to meet you. Come." I let him guide me away, but when I looked back, the woman was gone. For the next hour, I performed, shook hands, posed for photographs, gave a short speech about the intersection of art and architecture, about creating spaces that honored both the past and the future. My voice was steady. My smile was bright. No one could have guessed that I was unraveling from the inside out. At 9 o'clock, the crowd had swelled to over 200 people. The gallery hummed with conversation and laughter, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings I'd designed to create exactly this kind of acoustic warmth. That's when I saw him. Michael was standing alone near the east windows, the ones that overlooked the Back Bay skyline. He wore a tuxedo that looked rented, slightly too big in the shoulders. His hair was longer than I remembered, touching his collar. He was holding a glass of something amber, whiskey probably, and staring at the cantilever beam above us, the one we'd engineered together with chopsticks and string. I felt like I was watching myself from a distance as I walked toward him. Every step felt both inevitable and impossible. The crowd seemed to part without me asking it to, as if the universe itself was insisting this conversation happen. He didn't look at me until I was standing directly beside him. "Hello, Michael." His jaw tightened. For a long moment, he didn't respond, just kept staring up at the ceiling, at the structural poetry he'd helped create. "It's beautiful," he finally said. His voice was exactly as I remembered, low, measured, with an undertone of something that had always sounded like sadness, even when he was happy. "You did it justice. We did it justice, I said quietly. It was our design. Now he looked at me. His eyes were the same gray-green I used to trace with my fingertips on Sunday mornings, but there was something harder in them now, something that hadn't been there before. Was it our design? He took a sip of his whiskey. Because your name is on the plaque. Your firm got the commission. Your reputation was built on this. Michael, I'm not here to make a scene, Charlotte. His voice was controlled, but I could hear the years of anger compressed beneath it. I was invited. Anonymous ticket. I almost didn't come. Then why did you? Because I wanted to see it. The thing we dreamed about in our apartment when we were too young and too broke and too stupid to know we were supposed to give up. He gestured around the gallery. You made it real. That's not nothing. The acknowledgement landed like a punch. I'd expected rage, accusations, not this quiet devastation dressed up as approval. I never meant to take it from you, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. I thought, we were married, it was ours, and then when we weren't married anymore, I thought I'd earned it by being the one who actually built it. Maybe you did earn it. He drained his whiskey. But you know what you didn't earn, Charlotte? The right to erase me from the story. Every interview you've given about this museum, every article, every award ceremony, you've talked about your vision, your innovative structural design, your breakthrough. Because they were mine by then. They were ours. His voice rose slightly, and several people nearby glanced over. He lowered it again, but the intensity remained. They were always ours, and you took them and renamed them and built a career on them while I watched from the sidelines. Tears burned in my eyes. You left. You checked out of our marriage the second I took a real job. You made me choose between your dreams and survival. I left. His laugh was hollow. Charlotte, you left long before I did. The moment you walked into Harrison's office with our portfolio and pretended it was just yours. The moment you decided that being practical was more important than being partners. I was pregnant! I was terrified! The words came out louder than I intended. The conversations around us stuttered to a stop. I could feel eyes turning toward us, curiosity sharpening into attention. Michael's face went very still. Don't, he said quietly. Don't use that as a weapon. I'm not. But I stopped, because he was right. I was using it. Using the grief we'd both carried, the loss we'd never properly mourned together, because by the time it happened, we were already strangers living in the same apartment. I'm sorry, I whispered. Michael, I'm so sorry. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something crack in his expression. Not forgiveness, just exhaustion. I know you are, he said. But sorry doesn't change the fact that my work, our work, has your name on it. Sorry doesn't change the fact that you became a millionaire from designs we created together while I'm still teaching undergrads and wondering what my life would have looked like if I'd been the one to walk into Harrison's office first. Is that what this is about? I asked. The notes. Did you send someone to? What notes? His confusion looked genuine. Before I could respond, I felt a presence beside us. The woman in the black dress had materialized at my elbow. Mrs. Whitmore, she said, and her voice was smooth as glass. Or should I say, Ms. Brennan, I think it's time we all had an honest conversation. Michael looked between us, bewildered. Who are you? The woman smiled, and it was the same sharp smile from across the gallery. Someone who knows the whole story, including the parts Charlotte has been very careful to leave out. My blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? She reached into her clutch and pulled out a photograph. An old one, edges worn. She held it so both Michael and I could see. It was us, Michael and me, in the hospital. I was in a bed, hair tangled, face pale, and in Michael's arms. I couldn't breathe. "You told him you lost the baby," the woman said softly. "But that's not quite the whole truth, is it?" The photograph trembled in her hand. Or maybe the trembling was just in my vision. The entire gallery tilting sideways as 8 years of carefully constructed lies collapsed in on themselves like a building with faulty foundations. Michael stared at the photograph, then at me, then back at the photograph. "What does she mean?" His voice was barely audible. "Charlotte, what does she mean? Not quite the whole truth." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely, words trapped behind years of silence and shame and the kind of self-preservation that required burying the truth so deep you almost believed your own fiction. The woman, this stranger who somehow held my entire life in her hands, looked at me with something that might have been pity or judgment. I couldn't tell the difference anymore. "My name is Diana Reeves," she said, and the name meant nothing to me. "I'm a private investigator. I was hired 6 months ago to look into the origins of Brennan Architecture's signature projects, standard due diligence for a corporate acquisition." The words landed like stones in water. Corporate acquisition. Someone was investigating my firm. Someone wanted to buy it or destroy it, or... "What I found," Diana continued, her voice professional now, detached, "was a pattern of collaborative work being claimed as sole creation. But more than that, I found hospital records, adoption records. A paper trail that tells a very different story than the one you've been telling, Mrs. Whitmore." Michael's face had gone white. Adoption. The word hung in the air between us, impossible to take back. Around us, the gala continued. Champagne glasses clinked. The string quartet played something ethereal and sad. But in our small triangle near the east windows, the world had narrowed to just this. The three of us, and a truth that had been waiting 8 years to surface. "Charlotte," Michael's voice broke on my name. "Tell me she's wrong." I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in 8 years, and saw the exact moment he understood. The exact moment his brilliant, analytical mind put together the pieces I'd scattered so carefully. "You didn't lose the baby," he said slowly. "You gave her away." Not a question, a realization. I couldn't... My voice came out strangled. "We couldn't... We..." His eyes blazed. "There was no we, Charlotte. You made that decision alone. You gave away our daughter, and you never told me." "That's not exactly accurate," Diana interjected quietly. I wanted to hate her. This woman who'd excavated my secrets like an archaeologist digging up bones, but her voice held no malice. Just facts. Just truth. According to the hospital records, Mr. Whitmore was present at the birth. He held the baby. There are photographs. Michael was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Devastation mixed with dawning comprehension. "The pictures you destroyed, the ones from the hospital. You said it was too painful to keep them. You said we needed to move forward." "We did need to move forward," I whispered. "Michael, you have to understand." "Understand what? That you let me believe our daughter died? That every time I tried to talk about her, to grieve her, you shut down and changed the subject? That I blamed myself for years, wondering if the stress of our arguments caused the miscarriage while you knew..." His voice cracked. "You knew she was alive somewhere." "I told you I lost her," I said desperately. "I never said she died. I let you believe..." "That's the same thing!" He stepped back from me as if proximity itself was painful. Charlotte, that's the same goddamn thing. People were definitely watching now. I could feel their eyes, their curiosity sharpening into scandal. This was supposed to be my triumph, my night. Instead, it was becoming my unraveling, public, and irreversible. "Can we please do this somewhere private?" I asked, my voice small. Diana nodded toward a side corridor. "The offices downstairs are empty. I reserved one." Of course she had. This woman had orchestrated everything. The notes, the timing, this exact moment of maximum destruction. As we walked through the gallery toward the stairs, I felt the weight of hundreds of gazes following us, the whispered speculation already beginning. There goes Charlotte Brennan. I heard her ex-husband was here. Something about a scandal. Did you see her face? The office Diana led us to was small and institutional. A desk, 2 chairs, fluorescent lighting that made everything look slightly sickly. Michael and I sat while Diana remained standing, still holding that photograph like a prosecutor with evidence. "Why are you doing this?" I asked her. "Who hired you?" "That's confidential," she said. "But I can tell you this. They wanted to know if your success was built on legitimate work, or if there were complications that might affect an acquisition. What I found was far more complicated than architectural plagiarism." Michael's hands were shaking. He clasped them together on the desk, knuckles white. "Tell me everything, from the beginning. And Charlotte..." He looked at me, and there were tears on his face now, unashamed. "Don't lie to me anymore. Please." So I told him. I told him about the pregnancy that terrified me, about how I'd felt trapped by his dreams. Beautiful, impossible dreams that wouldn't pay for diapers or college funds or any kind of stable future. About how I'd taken the job at Harrison's firm, not to betray him, but to survive. I told him about the last trimester, working 70-hour weeks, trying to prove I was valuable, necessary, indispensable. About going into labor at 37 weeks during a meeting with a client, my water breaking on the conference room floor, like my body was making its own statement about my priorities. I told him about holding our daughter for 3 hours in the hospital, about her perfect tiny fingers and the way she'd looked at me with eyes that were his exact shade of gray-green, about the adoption counselor who'd been so kind, so understanding, who'd assured me this was the right choice for everyone. "I signed the papers 2 days after she was born," I said, my voice hollow. "You were there when she was born. You held her. You named her, Emma, after your mother. But then you went home to shower and change, and I called the adoption agency and I signed the papers while you were gone." Michael's face was a study in anguish. "Why didn't you tell me you were considering it? Why didn't we make that decision together?" "Because you would have said no." The truth came out flat, exhausted. You would have said we could make it work, that we'd figure it out, that love was enough. And I knew, Michael, I knew that it wasn't. We were already broken. Our marriage was already dying. I couldn't bring a child into that. So you made the decision for both of us. You gave away our daughter and let me believe she'd died. And then you used my grief, our grief, as a reason to divorce me and take everything we'd built together. The accusation hit like a physical blow because it was true. All of it was true. "I thought I was protecting you," I said weakly. "Protecting me?" His laugh was bitter. "Charlotte, you destroyed me. Do you know what these last 8 years have been like? Thinking I'd lost everything, my daughter, my wife, my dreams, all at once? I couldn't work for 2 years, couldn't design anything. Every building I looked at reminded me of what we'd created together. And every empty room in my apartment reminded me of the nursery we'd started painting before." He stopped, unable to continue. Diana set the photograph on the desk between us, In it, Michael held a bundle of pink blankets, his face radiating a joy I'd almost forgotten he was capable of. And I was watching him, not the baby. The expression on my face was complicated. Love and terror, and something that looked like goodbye. "She's 8 years old now," Diana said quietly. "The adoption was closed, but I found the records. Her name is Emma. She lives in Vermont with her parents. They're good people. She's happy." The information should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like another theft. 8 years of her life I'd never get back, a daughter I'd never know. "Does she know about us?" Michael asked, his voice raw. "The adoption was closed," Diana repeated. "But when she turns 18, she'll have the option to access her birth records. To find you, if she wants to." 10 more years. A decade of waiting for a child I'd given away to decide if I deserved to be found. Michael stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I can't be here. I can't." He looked at me, and the devastation in his eyes was unbearable. "You stole everything from me, Charlotte. My daughter, my work, my chance to be a father. And you built an empire on top of it like none of it mattered." "It mattered," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "Michael, it all mattered. I didn't know how to carry it all. The grief and the guilt and the work and the pretending. So I buried it. I buried all of it, and I told myself I was moving forward when really I was just running away." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly, a gesture of finality. "I hope it was worth it," he said. "I hope every building with your name on it, every award, every $1 million, I hope it was worth what you gave up to get it." Then he walked out. I sat in that fluorescent-lit office, mascara running, designer dress feeling like a costume, and finally understood what the notes had been trying to tell me all along. The foundation I'd built my fortune on wasn't just Michael's architectural genius. It was the lie I'd told to make it possible. Diana Reeves didn't leave immediately. She stood by the door, watching me with an expression that was difficult to read. Not quite sympathy, not quite judgment. Something in between. "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse from crying. "Why did you do it this way? The notes, the photographs, ambushing us at the gala. If you were hired to investigate my firm, why not just write a report and let your client decide what to do with the information?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out the second chair and sat across from me. Up close, I could see she was older than I'd initially thought. Mid-40s, maybe, with fine lines around her eyes, and a weariness that suggested she'd seen too many people's secrets. "Because my client didn't just want information," she said. "They wanted resolution. And after I dug into your story, the real story, I realized this wasn't about architectural plagiarism or corporate due diligence. This was about a woman who'd been running from the truth for so long she'd forgotten what it looked like. You don't know anything about me. I know you gave away a daughter you loved because you were terrified of failing her. I know you took your ex-husband's work because you believed survival mattered more than principle. I know you've spent 8 years building a fortress of success around a foundation made of grief and guilt." She leaned forward. "And I know that fortress is about to crumble unless you decide right now what kind of person you want to be on the other side of it." I wiped my face with the back of my hand, not caring that I was smearing $8 mascara across my skin. "What do you mean, what kind of person? The truth is out now. Michael hates me. My reputation is destroyed. What choice do I have?" "The same choice you've always had," Diana said. "To tell the truth or to keep running." She stood, smoothed her dress, and placed a business card on the desk. "My client wants to meet with you. Monday morning, 9 a.m. The address is on the back. They'll explain everything then." "Who is it?" I demanded. "Who hired you?" But Diana was already walking toward the door. She paused in the threshold, looking back at me one last time. "Someone who deserves the truth as much as Michael did," she said. "Maybe more." Then she was gone, leaving me alone with the photograph of a moment I'd tried to erase from history. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sounds of the gala to fade, for the string quartet to pack up, for the catering staff to clear away the champagne glasses and half-eaten canapes. Eventually, Marcus found me. "Charlotte." He stood in the doorway, concern etched across his face. "Everyone's asking about you. The mayor wanted to say goodbye, and there are reporters who..." He stopped, seeing my face. "What happened?" "Everything," I said simply. "Everything happened." He drove me home. Didn't ask questions, didn't press for explanations. Just helped me into his car and navigated the empty streets of Boston while I stared out the window at the city I'd conquered, the buildings I'd helped shape, the skyline that bore my fingerprints. It all felt hollow now, empty, like a stage set that only looked real from a distance. At home, I took off the midnight blue dress and hung it in my closet where I'd never wear it again. Washed my face, put on old sweatpants and an MIT t-shirt that had somehow survived the divorce. Michael's probably, stolen years ago and forgotten. Then I did something I hadn't done in 8 years. I drove to the storage unit in Somerville. It was after midnight. The facility was mostly empty, just fluorescent lights humming in empty corridors and the smell of cardboard and dust. My unit was on the 3rd floor, a 10 by 10 space I'd been paying for monthly, automatically, the charge so small I never noticed it. Inside were boxes, dozens of them. Everything from the Cambridge apartment I hadn't been able to throw away but couldn't bear to keep. Michael's drafting supplies, our wedding photos, books on architectural theory with both our names written inside the covers. And in the very back, in a banker's box labeled simply Designs, our original portfolio. I pulled it out and sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by the ghosts of who we used to be, and opened it. The drawings were extraordinary. Even now, even with 8 years of professional experience, I could see the brilliance in them. The museum, the residential tower, the cultural center, but also dozens of others we'd never built. The breathing facade, the quarry museum, the water wall library. Each one was marked with 2 sets of handwriting. His engineering calculations, my aesthetic notes, our initials together in the corners. MW plus CB Partners equals. Before I'd decided that survival required winning, and winning required someone had to lose. I found sketches I'd forgotten about, notes we'd written to each other in the margins. A napkin from the Thai restaurant where we'd worked out the cantilever calculations, the math written in ballpoint pen around a soy sauce stain. And at the very bottom of the box, in an envelope marked Emma, a letter I'd written the day after I signed the adoption papers. My hands shook as I opened it. The paper was yellowed slightly, my handwriting younger, more uncertain. Dear Emma, by the time you read this, you'll be old enough to understand that love sometimes looks like letting go. I gave you to parents who could give you stability, security, the kind of life I wasn't capable of providing. Your father wanted to keep you. He would have been a wonderful dad, brilliant and patient and full of dreams. But I was too broken to be your mother, too scared, too selfish. I hope you forgive me someday. I hope you understand that giving you away was the hardest thing I've ever done, and also the most loving. I hope you have a beautiful life, full of art and music, and people who see how extraordinary you are. And I hope, if you ever want to find us, that we've become people worthy of being found. With all the love I couldn't show you, Charlotte. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Then I packed up the entire portfolio, loaded it into my car, and drove home through the empty streets of Boston. Sunday, I didn't leave my house. I sat at my dining table with the portfolio spread before me, and I made a list. Things I needed to do. Call Michael, meet Diana's client. Tell the truth, publicly, completely, irreversibly. Figure out who I am when I'm not running anymore. The last one was the hardest. For 8 years, my entire identity had been built on forward momentum. Always achieving, always conquering, always moving fast enough that the past couldn't catch up. But the past had caught up. Now the question was, what came next? Monday morning arrived too quickly. I dressed simply, black trousers, white silk blouse, minimal jewelry. The armor of my usual designer wardrobe felt wrong now. Dishonest. The address on Diana's card was in Cambridge, a residential street lined with Victorian homes that had been converted to offices and non-profits. I parked and stared at the building for 10 minutes, trying to steady my breathing. Someone who deserves the truth as much as Michael did. Maybe more. I climbed the steps and rang the bell. Diana answered. Right on time. Come in. She led me down a hallway lined with children's artwork, crayon drawings, watercolors, finger paintings. A non-profit then. Maybe a family services agency. The walls were painted a warm yellow, and sunlight streamed through tall windows. We stopped at a door at the end of the hall. Diana knocked once, then opened it. The office inside was small but comfortable. Bookshelves, a couch, a desk covered in files. And sitting in the chair behind the desk, looking at me with eyes the exact shade of gray-green that haunted my dreams. Not Michael. A girl. 8 years old. Dark hair in braids. Wearing a purple sweater and holding a stuffed elephant. Emma. My daughter. Our daughter. Diana's voice came from very far away. She knows everything. And she asked to meet you, both of you. The door opened again behind me, and I didn't need to turn around to know who'd just walked in. Michael's sharp intake of breath confirmed it. Emma looked between us, the mother who gave her away and the father who never knew she was alive. And in a voice that was small but steady, she said, I think we need to talk. The three of us stood frozen in that sun-filled office like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Michael behind me, close enough that I could hear his breathing. Sharp, disbelieving. Emma in front of me. Impossibly real. Impossibly here. And me. Caught between them. Between the past and the impossible present. Diana spoke quietly from the doorway. Emma's adoptive parents are downstairs. They know about this meeting. They approved it. A pause. She's known she was adopted since she was 5. And 6 months ago, she started asking questions they couldn't answer. So they hired you, I said. The pieces finally clicking together. Not a corporation. Them. They wanted to know who you were. If you were safe. If you deserved to be found. Diana looked at Emma with something like affection. She's the one who decided she wanted to meet you both. Once I explained the whole situation. Michael moved past me, slowly, as if approaching something fragile that might shatter. He stopped a few feet from Emma, just staring at her. You look like your grandmother, he said, his voice breaking. My mother. She had your eyes. Emma studied him with the kind of careful assessment only children can manage, seeing everything, judging nothing. You're the engineer, she said, the one who made buildings that breathe. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You know about that? Diana showed me the drawings, from when you and... She looked at me now, and I felt the full weight of her gaze. From when you were married. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. This child, this person, was everything I'd tried not to imagine for 8 years. Real and specific and utterly herself in ways I'd never allowed myself to picture. Why did you give me away? Emma asked. Not accusing, simply asking. The way children ask why the sky is blue or where rain comes from, just wanting to understand the mechanics of the world. I knelt down, bringing myself to her level. Though my legs were shaking so badly, I wasn't sure they'd hold me. Because I was 26 years old and terrified, I said. Because your father and I were falling apart, and I thought I couldn't be the mother you deserved. I thought giving you to parents who were ready, who were stable, who could give you everything I couldn't. I thought that was love. Was it? She asked. The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. I don't know, I admitted. I thought so at the time. Now I think maybe I was just scared. And being scared made me make choices that hurt a lot of people, including you, and especially your father. Michael knelt beside me, and the three of us formed a small triangle on the carpet. He looked at Emma with such naked longing it hurt to witness. I didn't know, he told her. I need you to understand that. I thought, your mother let me believe you'd died. If I'd known you were alive, that you'd been adopted, I would have... You would have what? Emma asked, not unkindly. Come to find me? Taken me away from my parents? The question stopped him. Because she was right. What would he have done? Fought the adoption? Disrupted her life? Destroyed the stability I'd chosen for her? I don't know, he said finally, echoing my words. But I would have known you existed. And that would have meant everything. Emma was quiet for a long moment, her small fingers stroking the elephant's worn ears. My parents are really nice, she said. My mom teaches 3rd grade and my dad builds furniture. We have a house in Burlington with a big backyard, and I have a dog named Archie. I take piano lessons, and I'm learning French, and I want to be an architect when I grow up. The last sentence landed like a thunderclap. An architect? Michael repeated. She nodded, suddenly animated. I love buildings, how they're made, how they stand up, how they can be beautiful and useful at the same time. My dad says I'm always drawing floor plans of houses I want to live in when I'm older. Michael looked at me over her head, and something passed between us. Recognition of the impossible poetry of it. That this child we'd created out of love and broken dreams had somehow inherited our shared passion, even though we'd never been part of her life to pass it on. Your mother and I used to do the same thing, he said softly. Draw buildings late at night. Try to make something impossible become real. Did you? Emma asked. Make them real? I thought about the museum, the residential tower, the cultural center, all the projects built on foundations we'd laid together and I'd claimed alone. Some of them, I said, but not the way we planned, not together. Emma looked between us with that same assessing gaze. Diana showed me articles about you, she said to me. You're famous. You won awards. There are buildings in Boston with your name on them. Yes, I said, shame burning in my chest. But they weren't just yours, were they? They were both of yours, from before. The truth, spoken by an 8-year-old who saw more clearly than any of us. No, I admitted, they weren't just mine. Then why did you say they were? How do you explain adult cowardice to a child? How do you describe the way fear and ambition and grief can twist together until you can't tell where one ends and another begins? Because I was wrong, I said simply. I was wrong about a lot of things, and I'm sorry. Emma nodded slowly, as if filing this information away. Then she looked at Michael. Are you mad at her? He closed his eyes briefly. Yes, he said. But I'm also grateful I got to meet you, even like this, even after all this time. My parents said I could ask you questions, Emma said. if I wanted to. They said it's okay to be curious about where I came from. Ask us anything, Michael said immediately. So she did. For the next hour, sitting on the floor of that office while Diana waited outside and gave us space, Emma asked questions about how we met, what we studied, why we loved architecture, what our wedding was like, what we'd planned to name her before she was born. Emma, after Michael's mother. I'd let him choose, in the hospital, thinking it would be the last gift I could give him. She asked Michael about his mother, who died when he was 12. She asked me about my grandmother, whose earrings I was wearing. She asked if we still loved each other. That question we couldn't answer. Finally, she asked, "Do you think about me?" "Every day," Michael said without hesitation. She looked at me. "Every single day," I said, my voice breaking. "For 8 years. Every building I designed, every award I won, every morning I woke up. There was a space inside me shaped like you, and I filled it with work and success and lies because I didn't know how else to carry it." Emma was quiet, processing. Then she said something that unmade me completely. "My mom, my adoptive mom, she says sometimes the hardest thing about loving someone is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. She says you let go because you loved me. Is that true?" I looked at this extraordinary child, this person who existed because of us, but belonged entirely to herself. And I finally understood what I'd been unable to see 8 years ago. "Yes," I said. "But I also let go because I was scared. And I let go of your father because I was scared. And I spent 8 years building a life I thought would make me less scared. But all it did was make me more alone." "Are you still scared?" she asked. "Terrified," I admitted. "But not of the same things anymore." Emma stood up, brushing off her purple sweater. "I have to go now. My parents are taking me to lunch and then we're driving back to Vermont. School tomorrow." The finality of it hit like a physical blow. She'd come into our lives for 1 hour, and now she was leaving again, and I had no right to ask for more. But Michael did. "Can we?" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Can we see you again, sometime?" Emma looked toward the door, where presumably her real parents, the ones who'd raised her, loved her, given her a stable home and a dog named Archie, were waiting. "I'll ask them," she said. "Maybe, someday, when I'm ready." It wasn't a no. It wasn't a yes. It was the only honest answer an 8-year-old could give. She walked to the door, then turned back. "I'm glad I look like your mother," she told Michael. Then to me, "And I'm glad you told the truth, even if it took a long time." Then she was gone. Michael and I sat on the floor in silence, listening to her footsteps recede down the hallway, the sound of voices greeting her, a door opening and closing. "What do we do now?" I finally asked. He looked at me, and for the first time since Saturday night there wasn't anger in his eyes, just exhaustion, and something that might have been understanding. "I don't know," he said, "but I think we start by doing what we should have done 8 years ago. Tell the truth. All of it. About the work. About Emma. About everything." "I'll lose everything," I said. "My reputation, my firm, maybe my license." "Maybe," he agreed. "But you'll have something you haven't had in 8 years." "What?" "The ability to look at yourself in the mirror." He stood, offered me his hand. I took it, and he pulled me to my feet. Diana was waiting in the hallway. "How did it go?" "She's remarkable," Michael said. "She is," Diana agreed. "Her parents did a good job. They love her very much." The implication was clear. We'd made the right choice, even if we'd made it for the wrong reasons. 6 months later, I stood in the same museum gallery where my world had imploded, but everything was different now. The bronze plaque on the wall had been changed. It no longer read, "Designed by Charlotte Brennan, Brennan Architecture." Now it said, "Designed by Charlotte Brennan and Michael Whitmore, Original Concept 2015. I'd held a press conference in December, told the whole story, the collaboration, the marriage, the adoption, the lies. The architectural community was divided. Some praised my honesty. Others called for my professional censure. My firm lost 3 major clients. 2 of my senior architects left. But I kept the company, renamed it Brennan Whitmore Architecture, with Michael as a full partner and co-owner. We weren't rebuilding our marriage. That ship had sailed years ago. But we were rebuilding our partnership. Learning to work together again. Learning to trust again. It was hard. Painful. Most days I wasn't sure it would work. But it was honest. Emma sent a letter in February. She'd drawn a picture of a building. Impossible, beautiful, structurally unsound but full of imagination. She said she thought about us sometimes. She said maybe when she was older, we could all meet again. Maybe. I framed the drawing and hung it in my office, next to the awards I'd won, and the magazine covers that no longer felt like achievements. The museum gala had been my public triumph and my private reckoning. The moment everything I'd built revealed itself for what it truly was. Not an empire, but a fortress designed to keep the truth out. After I became a millionaire, I learned that wealth without honesty is just expensive loneliness. But I also learned that it's never too late to start telling the truth, even when the truth costs everything you thought you wanted. Michael and I still meet weekly to review projects. We argue about aesthetics and engineering. We compromise. We remember what it felt like to be partners before we were adversaries. And sometimes, late at night, working on some impossible design that will probably never be built, I let myself imagine a future where Emma walks into our office and says, "I want to work with you. I want to learn how to build beautiful things." Maybe it will happen. Maybe it won't. But at least now, if it does, I'll be someone worthy of teaching her. The swan boats are running again in the public garden below my window. Spring in Boston, everything starting over, everything new and fragile and honest in the morning light. I'm not a millionaire anymore, not technically. Restructuring the firm, paying back investors, making things right, it took most of what I'd accumulated. But I'm richer than I've ever been, because I can finally look at myself in the mirror. If this story touched you, leave your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments and subscribe for the next journey.